All right. Survivor Specialist Phil and Alexa are back, and we're here to break down episode 7 of Survivor Season 42. Chanel is gone, which means Alexa's hopes and dreams have been tarnished. Thanks a lot, Chanel, for ruining Alexa's Wednesday and every Wednesday from here after. But Chanel is gone. I ultimately think the right decision was made tonight, despite the fact that Romeo's name came up quite a bit. It makes me feel good because while everybody was picking Chanel as a winner pick, I was not. And now I can sit there and say, no, poo-poo, even though my winner pick of Drea almost certainly feels like it's too good to be true at this point. So I know that that's not going to end up working out. But a lot to unpack from this episode. I got to say, even in an episode that had such a predictable boot, especially after Tori won the immunity challenge, I felt like Romeo was really thrown in there just to kind of try to give us something else. I had Chanel at the bottom. I think you had Chanel next to the bottom.
We both had her at number. Actually, out of our power rankings games, only like 2 or 3 people did not put Chanel at number.
So about as easy of a boot as we're going to get on this season. And yet it's still a pretty good episode of Survivor. I still enjoyed watching this episode. I think there's a lot to talk about. I think we're really starting to see who the players are and who they aren't. And I've been saying that for a couple weeks now. But like, how much personal content did we get from my man Mike tonight? I mean, my God, everything he said was personal content. So a lot happened here, despite the fact that it was a relatively easy boot. I'm going to tell you what, Chanel's going to be a pain on that jury. She is going to give somebody a really hard time at the final 3, and I look forward to her doing it.
I look forward to that too. And I mean, has Denny's been relevant in the past 10 years, been a sponsor of Survivor? And can it be a sponsor? How upsetting would it be if Jeff was like, all right, guys, you can either perform in this challenge or you can eat a mountain of pancakes from Denny's.
Yeah.
I haven't been to Denny's since freshman year of college, and I was drunk at the Grove and then ate at that horrible Denny's on US 1 near college.
Right across the street.
I'm sure if I was above the age of 55 and I got a 15% discount, I would absolutely be going to Denny's. I hope Mike enjoys his Denny's. I thought that was hilarious.
It was hilarious, but let's be real. If you're getting even if you get the most expensive thing on the menu at Denny's, it's probably going to cost you like $12. So a 15% discount, you're saving $1.80. Like, congratulations. It's not that big a deal. But hey, that's how you get them. I love it. And if he goes for the early bird, he's probably getting even more of a discount. I really do enjoy what Mike is bringing to this season. It's such a different perspective. I thought him and Omer's scene together was really good.
It was great.
And prior to COVID, so ignore season 41, because I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to do a lot of ignoring season 41 for the rest of my life. But prior to COVID, Survivor was on a serious mean streak. Season 38 had a lot of ugly play. Season 39 was all ugly play. And then season 40 wasn't as positive as we all wanted it to be. There was a lot of negativity surrounding that season as well. It feels like they tried to redeem themselves with 41, and they forced themselves into a corner with a cast that was just like, okay, we're picking you because we're picking you, and you might not necessarily actually provide what we want you to provide. And this season, it feels like they just, and I've said this a lot, got authentic versions of the people that they wanted. Everybody here feels authentic. What Mike is doing with Omer does not feel like he's doing it as gameplay or anything like that. It seems like he is genuinely interested in what Omer and people like Omer bring to the world. And it's something different than what Mike's ever experienced. And Omer seems to be so respectful of that, as well as Mike being respectful of him. We've never seen a scene where somebody is literally just sitting there watching another person pray. And it's different because we're used to seeing, oh, we're all going to pray, or, oh, I can't believe they're praying. Like, we're seeing respect here on this season. And I even think, if you look at the way that everybody else is treating each other and the alliances that are forming, it seems like the alliances that are forming really respect each other. And the people who are left out aren't getting as much respect in return. And I'm talking about Romeo. I'm talking about Chanel. I'm talking about Tori, and I'm talking about Marianne. Now, Marianne, I'm going to give her the excuse that she's incredibly young and she's just learning on the fly out there. But the other 3, I think, they're more self-centered, at least from what we're seeing. And I think that is what has kept them on the outside. We saw Romeo's blow up tonight. We see Tori keep trying to find her way in, but it seems like it always comes back to how, I'm Tori. Don't forget that I'm Tori. And then you go and you look at Chanel, who goes home tonight. It just seemed like finger on the pulse of anything that was going on in this tribe. And so to me, it feels like the theme of this season is respect for other people, and not being self-centered. And I think that's why we're seeing this play out the way it is.
Yeah, and I really like that. And there's obviously a lot to be said about like, I love petty fights. I love, I don't like when players are mean to each other. I don't like when we have actually like mean-spirited people. And to me, like this is a season that I can now point to and say, like, isn't it fun to have 6 different people who you want to win? Because I there's so many people I want to win. And this season is still fun and exciting and funny and competitive, and no one's being an a-hole to each other.
Yeah.
Like the meanest person on the season is like Tori, because she rolls her eyes. Like I like, yeah, Tori files under like the generally annoying tab, but I was cheering when she won that individual immunity tonight. So I find myself like wanting everyone to do well because this is just a good and exciting cast. So I think, yeah, like people are still being competitive and there's obviously still a lot of like fights and bickering, but it doesn't feel, we don't have to be like, oh, Ricard and Shan and the papaya, like, oh, who was the jerk? Like, that's not happening this season, and I'm fine with that because that was kind of just dumb.
Yeah, it feels almost like this season there's a little bit more manufactured drama, which like that's what Survivor is ultimately supposed to be, right? It's supposed to be manufactured drama, but like next week it looks like Lindsay and Jonathan are going to blow up at each other. That's going to be 2 seconds.
Finally.
We're finally going to get those points.
Please.
Now that might lead to people on the internet saying something, but it's not going to lead to more on the show. It's just something that's like, hey, we got to manufacture this. Mm-hmm. And I think some of the best seasons of Survivor weren't based around people being like actually mean to each other. You know what I mean? Like it was more based on how is this group going to, how are the Kiser 6 who, yes, they were actually mean to each other, but how are the Kiser 6 going to stay together through all of this? That's what this feels more of like we're watching. It seems like everybody wants a seat at the table, but how are they going to find their seat at the table? And we have a rooting interest all across the board. There are so many people to sit there and root for, which is very fun to do. And we can't say that about season 41. And you can't say that about even Winners at War because it was so obvious Tony was going to win for so long. Mm-hmm. And you can't say that during 39 because you had 1 or 2 people that you were really pulling for. And then, yeah, I'm very happy Tommy won, but I was pulling for Janet. Like, get out of here. That's who I was rooting for. Like, there's no doubt about it. There is no clear-cut favorite this season. There's no clear-cut fan favorite this season. And I think that's what's making this really compelling TV. I might keep going back to calling it like Gabon or something like that. Gabon is obviously an uglier version of this. But if you think about Gabon, think about how many great characters are on that season. And we're seeing that right now. There's a lot of great characters to the point where, am I going to be disappointed if any of them win? Not out of this final 10. Because if Marianne, even though she's on the outs right now, if she somehow finds a way to win, I'm going to be fine with that because I can't wait to watch that story. If Romeo wins, I'm excited to see how the hell this guy's going to pull that out. If Roxroy wins, good for him. I don't know what the hell he did, but good for him. Like, I'm just saying there's somebody to root for all across the board. And we haven't had that in a while. And I love the way they're editing this. Survivor is listening finally. Look, somebody put in the chat here, and I didn't notice this because I really don't pay attention to it because whatever, I'm not playing the game and like, so it's not affecting me. But this is from Daniel Martinez. Can you all mention how they're really switching seating at Tribal? Seeing Jonathan in the front row right next to Marianne was incredible. He looked even bigger. These are the types of things that we're talking about. Give us this. You can even see it a little bit tonight when they showed us the reveal of the rocks. It's like they know that we want to know what's going on when these things are happening. And it seems like they're trying to work their way back to it because they know 41 could have been the end of this series. It could have been the end of this franchise if they kept going down that path. I think they're listening a lot more now, like a lot more. And I think we're seeing it in some of the decisions they're making on the season, and it's helping with the editing, and it's helping with what is a phenomenal cast with a lot of rootable people.
Yeah, and you took the I think this
I didn't mean to click that.
Got accidentally. Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, you got a good cast, and they finally learned how to edit this evenly. And I think that's like why this is so good. But to your point, they like kind of listened to Danny. I know like dozens of players, but I'm going to mention Kellen just because I know she's like publicly talked about it. Dozens of players have complained about men getting to sit in the back and women having to sit in the front. Now they're listening to shifting that up. And I feel like, as much as now it feels like Survivor, there's always a sob story. There's always this, there's always that. And, Mike, I forget what Mike said exactly, but he was like, maybe we're not all that different. And the music was like ridiculous and it was like unicorns skipping through a field. But I don't know. Does that have to be a bad thing? I really liked that. I thought that was great. And what's really cool about this cast is I think like Hai had a really good transition last week where first half of the episode, everyone's like, all right, like we're getting to know each other. How cool. And then we kick it into gear. And Marianne was left out of the vote tonight, or like kind of left out of the vote tonight. And she looked just like in awe and confused, but she wasn't like pissed. Like at the beginning of this episode, when everyone was chatting back at camp, no one's really mad at each other. And again, there's a lot of fun to people yelling at each other, but there's also a lot of fun to people just like enjoying the game, enjoying each other. And I think it's really great. I hope it keeps up.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to always put opposites on the show because sometimes opposites work well together. But sometimes like they will purposely put people on tribes that they know aren't going to get along with each other. We don't need that. You don't need to do that. Just like give us who the people are and let them play the game the way they are. And that's what I'm all about. And we're seeing that on this season, like with, like Hai and Romeo. It seemed like they were going to have something and they didn't. We're seeing Omer, who really has nothing in common on the surface level with anybody on this cast, just run around in circles and use it to his advantage. Yeah. He is playing such a great game. I loved him talking about how, all the people on the outside think that he's an outsider just because of who he is. And he's firmly right in the middle of the regular alliance. It's phenomenal gameplay. I mean, he is playing on another level. We haven't seen gameplay like this from players in a very long time. And I get it. It's probably there, but it's not if we don't see it. I'm sorry, but anything you tell me that happened off the screen, it's interesting for one of these, like for a tell-all or something. But if I didn't see it, I don't know it. And I'm not going to be able to give you as much credit for it. And right now we're seeing the gameplay. And I got to think Survivor knows what's interesting. The producers and editors know what's interesting. And they're managing to pull out a lot of interesting this season. Maybe they just weren't getting enough interesting in some of the other seasons.
Yeah, that's true. And what's really impressive about what Omar is pulling off is that, and maybe it's because like this solid crew of 8 people, it's not super set in stone. And it's not in a like outwardly exclusionary way. I'm shocked that Omar is able to hang around with the quote unquote outsiders and nobody's calling him out on it. I think that's especially impressive. And I think it also helps that there's sort of layers. But to get a little bit, especially into the Romeo thing, this is something that I know why people do this, but it bothers me. Like back when Chanel threw a vote Mike's way when Daniel got voted out, Mike was like, how could she? How dare you try to save your back? Yeah, how dare a player try to save their own skin? With Romeo, they're high and like everyone, they're annoyed that Romeo's scrambling. He's scrambling because his name is actually coming up. Yeah, he's a decoy vote, but nobody wants to be a decoy vote. So that's what bothers me about like the majority alliance mindset, where obviously it ended up working out. I know Romeo voted for High, so he's super off, but I don't know.
He's still in the game.
He's still in the game. Like how dare he try to save himself?
I have 2 things about this. One, I completely agree with you about the Romeo thing. However, I think that Hai and Mike and them were all a little bit more concerned that Romeo had picked up on it and was trying to cause chaos. And that meant, hey, let's get rid of the guy who heard and now is trying to cause chaos before it can actually bite us in the ass. Because I still think Romeo, like Tori, I feel like once she loses immunity, she's done. If she loses next week, I think she's done. I really think she's still in a lot of trouble. Romeo, I feel like they're going to let him squeak by too long and he's just going to start killing them. I really do.
I think he'll be okay.
My thing with the Chanel point towards Mike is this. I understand why Mike is so mad with Chanel because Chanel picked Mike.
Well, yeah, there's 2 other people to vote for.
But that's what I'm saying, though. So it makes sense that Mike would have something personal, though, in this situation because he was chosen rather than her choosing Hai or choosing, I forget, was it Lydia Hai, Chanel, Mike, and Daniel was still there, right? So, but I guess for Mike, he's saying, well, why didn't you pick?
Because those 2 are the majority.
But still, he's saying you can break up that majority. So for him, he's sitting there saying, well, she's going to be closer with Hai and she's going to be closer with Lydia and she's not going to be close with me. It's hard to gain that trust back. And we've seen that a lot throughout the history of the show.
No, I totally get it. It's just, it's like, your name's you're gonna get votes in the game. Like it's like it's an extremely less extreme version of Rupert flipping out when people voted for him.
Yes.
It's like, and I know that they lived together for a long time, so of course they couldn't stand each other, but I get annoyed when players get annoyed when people are playing.
I think the other thing that, and we've heard this in the past, I don't think Mike's gotten another vote this year.
That might be his first vote. Yeah.
I think that's his only vote.
He's in the 5 votes or less club.
And people always say that when your name comes up that first time, once you find out like who it is, you're like, I'm going to kill, because that's the only one. And I think the problem for him is, had he gotten more votes since then, I think then at that point, he's got too many people to worry about. You know what I mean? But he had an easy reason to pinpoint Chanel, and that's why he did it, because it was an easy target for him. Now, ultimately, what do you think, though? Because I understand where your point is. Do you think this was the right move tonight, though, to get rid of Chanel, or do you think they should have gotten rid of Romeo?
I'm not even talking about tonight. I'm talking about the one confessional that Mike had like last week. Getting rid of Chanel tonight was like the move. It was totally the right move. And I think you could have gone either way on getting rid of Romeo, because I think the difference is Romeo is a better player. So I think, to your point, Romeo might be able to make some inroads. But I really don't know if he'll be able to, because he's now been out of the vote twice. And for some reason, Drea has just like totally dropped him. And I'm curious to hear her perspective on it, because I imagine it's more than just like, oh, well, he was paranoid last week and now I won't make eye contact with him. But she's in charge, so I guess it really doesn't matter. I don't think any player has ever had the number of anything that Chanel has.
Drea. Chanel.
What did
Chanel
I
has
say?
A lot
Chanel?
of things. Yeah, she has a lot of things over in the Juryville.
She sure does. She's got. I hope she's eating a lot. I think I saw Chanel's name in the. Also, I love that whoever spelled Chanel the way of the designer brand. I thought that was very funny.
Yes, Coco before. It's very hard. It's hard not to read that while we're also talking. But okay, before we talk about Drea, I just want to talk about this though, and Romeo, and what's going to happen next week. 2 idols, 2 people going home. We're getting a split. It's final 10. They're doing the exact same format they did for last season. This is where Romeo could really pick it up. Because if Romeo survives this week, let's say he ends up on a tribe with a Tori, and Tori goes home. And this is where Tori goes home. And he's on that tribe, so he can't go home because he just got lucky. And then the other tribe, somebody who we didn't want to go home or weren't expecting, goes home. Now we're at final 8. Now they have to start eating each other. If Romeo can like that, this was a huge vote to get through, because now anything can happen when they decide to split this thing up. He could win the immunity. Who knows? And then all of a sudden, now he's moved. Getting through this vote didn't just move him up to 10th, and moved him up to at least 8th. Yeah. And by getting there, now he's got a lot of wiggle room. And at 8 and 7 in this new school era of Survivor, that's when people really start to make their moves. And this alliance is just too big. We're seeing already they want to start going for each other. We're seeing it, whether it's Jonathan, Lindsay, Omer, they're all going to start looking for other people to take out. Yeah. You have to at some point. I think Hai is going to probably be the first victim of that, because Hai is running out of allies very, very quickly. Very quickly. But I just think like next week, that's a huge one that Romeo got through this. And he's the type of person who can sneak by. If he can get sneak by that vote, man, he can cause the chaos straight to the end. Yeah, this feels like a situation where stray bullets are going to come, because I think, the outsiders are, quote unquote outsiders, are like Marianne, Romeo, Tori. But I mean, Tori voted correctly. Tori and Roxbury both voted for Chanel tonight. But I think that Marianne is 110% smart enough to play her idol. I really like what she did tonight. I know I hear her haters saying like, ooh, she thinks she's so smart, emotionally manipulating people. She did it. And Jonathan said, no one's going to vote for that, which I'm shocked that just like people agreed with that, but good for him for having that authority. So I think this is where like Lindsay could get hit. I think Hai could be in trouble, because you're right, he doesn't have any people anymore. It's going to be weird. And I think Jonathan's still fine. Okay, so Jonathan doing what Danny did last season, right? Name's not even coming up. How is Jonathan able to do this? Is this just the cast, or have they officially gone into a new era of this type of player? Because even think about this. after we had James Clement, they never found another James Clement. And we forget, James never won an immunity challenge. So he survived a lot without having immunity. Have we finally gotten back to that where they have found a way to get more mild-mannered big guys rather than getting these like bro-y big guys or these like angry big guys? Like, have we finally found a way to get back there? And you think that this is going to become the trope? We're going to get rid of the Scott Pollards and the Coles and the Joey Amazings, and we're going to start going this route so that they actually have a chance to win?
I hope so. I've been more invested in Jonathan than I have in like any challenge beast since Ozzy, and Ozzy was kind of an asshole. So I think the difference is, and I think Jeff will be so happy if he ever has the opportunity to listen to my beautiful voice with what I'm about to say. Shortening the game makes Jonathan a lot more useful. And I think that especially seeing how they horrifically negotiated for Rice, Jonathan is really, really important. And they're not showing it or they're not saying it, but I have to imagine the rate at which Jonathan catches fish and helps with their camp, that is keeping him around. So I think that's a huge factor, but I do think there is some kind of respect there, because I think if they didn't respect Jonathan, then they would have no problem voting for any of the 4 people whose name came up.
I think that's where we just keep coming back, right? I think it just comes back to that. And now I think let's talk about Drea, because I think out of all the women playing the game, she's the one who needs the most respect right now. She's got everything
100%.
in her hand.
Everything.
And we're seeing, I mean, let's be real. There's four women left in the game now in the final 10. Lindsay's not going to win. She just doesn't have the edit. And Tori is not going to win. So it's either Marianne or it's Drea if we're getting a winner on this season who's a woman. Look at what Drea has right now. And tell me she doesn't have the most impressive backpack in the history of Survivor.
Yeah.
Like,
Seriously.
what she has right now is, when she just started pulling it out, it's crazy. Not for nothing, her Beware advantage wasn't that crazy.
Yeah.
Although we got to talk about this.
Beware.
But also, it actually, I was sitting there and I'm like, this is stupid. This isn't even a Beware. And then she actually effed it up.
Yeah.
She did. And Tori, the love, I absolutely love Tori. I'm not going to lie.
She's great.
I love that she just called her out on me. It was like, what is that? Nobody painted our flag. You're full of shit. Like,
yeah.
I love it. But I didn't think this was much of a Beware, but it somehow became a Beware. But Drea has a lot in her bag of tricks here. And Drea, I think, is totally safe next week. And then she just needs to know how to play these things and not get too cocky, because now she has so much stuff. Is she just going to be that person who's like, look at all of my bling? And then she just gets robbed one night because she's like, well, nobody can possibly touch me. Like, that's where I'm a little worried for her. But man, she has everything. She's got the amulet. She's got an extra vote. She's got an idol. And now she has the knowledge is power. And she knows Mike and Marianne have it. She can pick what, like, she has all the power in the game.
She has all the power in the game. And I'm a little surprised that no one is putting 2 and 2 together on this. I'm trying to do the math on who knows what, but I feel like Hai knows about 3 of the 4. He might just not know that he knows. Like, it's all spread out. And the difference is, I feel like no one's really talking about these spoken word idols, like, or people maybe we're hitting a new era where it's not as valuable to have this stuff, because a lot of people know about this stuff and no one's like, we got to flush this, we got to flush that. Like, we're splitting Romeo and Chanel, but everyone knows where all the stuff is. So I don't know, but I hope she doesn't get too overconfident. I would love to see her like continue to play these and everyone gets shocked every time she has something. But I'm certainly nervous for her. And my eyes like rolled out of my head with the caught red-handed thing as soon as she pulled her hand out. But
it was great.
Yeah, it was cheesy, but it was good.
So cheesy, but it worked because of Tori.
Because of Tori. Tori was so good. And Drea even said that. She's like, Tori notices like freaking everything. And I just totally bluffed that.
I would not want to date Tori. That's all I'm going to say. I would not, because I feel like Tori would be like, why do you have a wrinkle in your shirt, huh? What's going on with that? She would just.
Why were you hanging out with that girl? Did she put that
what's
in
that
your
smell, huh? Did you go to McDonald's again? Because it doesn't smell like McDonald's. Why'd you say McDonald's? Like,
and your answer is like, yeah.
As I'm like holding the Wendy's cup, like, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. But she really does. She just seems like the type of person who is so hyper aware of everything That's good for Survivor. I think she ended up on the wrong tribe to start. I have something, and this is brilliance that just came across my mind, and I need to share it with all of you because brilliance needs to be shared, especially when it's coming from me. Patting myself on the back here. But I just thought of this because, Alexa, we're running into a problem. This is the problem. You just said a great thing. Idols haven't really been coming up. I love that. I love that we are in this new era where idols aren't the conversation piece every single time. That's great. However, we now have 3 idols, 2 extra votes, I think it is, and the 3 amulets all still in the game, and we're at final 10. All of these have an expiration date of final 5. So here's my brilliant idea, because that's going to be a problem. That can't continue to be what's happening in Survivor, because we can't just have every final 5 come down to the same thing every time of, well, if you have an idol, you're safe, and we get like that Troy-Zan, Kimmy Kappenberg vote out. Like, we can't have that every time. So here's my solution. There needs to be a tipping point with idols. Jeff, are you listening? People, listen. There needs to be a tipping point with idols and with advantages. Maybe not the other ones, but idols, where if you use them up until like final 8, they are a full idol. But then at final 7, now it only nullifies 3 votes. At final 6, maybe it only nullifies 2 votes.
That's
cool. At final 5, it only nullifies 1 vote. So now you can keep it and it will still help you, but you still have to rely on the relationships that you have to get you further in the game. So it's an idol that starts off with the most power, and you have that power through these really busy portions, but then it starts to lose its power and makes you rely on your social relationships. Because I can see where this is going right now. A lot of people with a lot of idols, and they've just been holding on to them, and they're not even thinking about playing them because people are too worried to put the votes on them and then get idled out of the game. So how do you get rid of that? Have the idol with diminishing power. Boom. The idol of diminishing returns. It makes so much sense, because now all of a sudden, as the game is going on and these people are getting, oh, we have these 3 idols, whatever. But now they have to say, well, okay, if I'm in danger at final 7, I still need to be able to pull votes on my side to ensure that if I play my idol, it can't be 6-1. If it's 6-1, I still go home. Mm-hmm. And I think that would make this really interesting and not make us sit here and go, okay, there's going to be one episode where someone's going to get totally effed and there's nothing that anybody can do about it.
Yeah, because right now it looks like Lindsay could be playing a good game, but she's going to go home because she's the only person who doesn't have a thing. I love a diminishing power idol. It's sort of like the timed idol, but I think it's better because the timed idol forces you to play kind of recklessly. This is like, you can keep it and it's still going to work. It's just going to work a little bit less.
Yeah, exactly. And the other one is, you get it for a vote out or 2 vote outs or whatever, but it's still a full idol. Mm-hmm. And my biggest concern with the game is they can all play this at final 5, right? So at final 5, we could have all 3 of them still in the game and play it, and then another person wins immunity. The other person's out of the game. They don't have a choice. They're out. They literally don't have a say in the game. Nothing matters. Why keep pushing towards that? And now obviously there's a lot of people who, there's a lot of time between now and then, but because we're not talking about it, this is becoming a little bit more chaotic. And great point here from Neil Stones. Lindsay has an amulet, which can become an idol. Oh, so if Lindsay's the last one remaining, now granted, Drea has her idol too, but let's say Drea were to give her idol to Romeo for some reason, or who the hell knows. And it's Romeo, Drea, Lindsay. So Drea's out. So Romeo has it. It's Romeo, Lindsay, and then who has the other idol? Marianne. And who's the other idol?
Mike.
And Mike. And then let's say Jonathan wins immunity. Nobody goes home at final 5?
Yeah.
Just nobody goes home at final 5. That's a problem they're running into here. So now it only nullifies 1 vote. And now if you get 4 votes, you still go home that episode. And you should have played your idol earlier to get rid of the person you needed to get rid of, rather than let them stay in the game and then ultimately vote you out. I don't know. I just think it could work. I'm gonna call Jeff right now. So you keep the podcast going.
Call Jeff on the Jeff phone. Speaking of Jeff, I hate that we have to have a Jeff segment. I love him to death, but he's been talking to us a little too much this season. And we had 2 scenes where Jeff looked the camera dead in the eye, and I was like, oh God, what's happening here? So I like the Beware advantage. I like him explaining that. I love it. I don't think it was very Beware. I don't actually know what the penalty was. Is the penalty being caught red-handed?
Yeah, that was, the penalty was that you could be caught. Yeah.
Okay. I'll take that. I'm glad Drea's not losing a vote. I feel like we don't need to have that happen at this point in the game. But I swear Jeff looked every 9 million of us in the eyes and said, I know you guys don't understand the monster, and I'm just going to keep talking about it. That was so
He's the monster.
ridiculous. Jeff is the monster.
He is. He's the monster.
He wants more to eat. What did he say? The monster demands more.
Might be hungrier next time. You guys ever see Pan's Labyrinth with the little kid eater thing that runs around with his hands up like that? That's Jeff now. Jeff is the kid eater from Pan's Labyrinth.
I hate Jeff. That thing so much.
It's great, but somebody get me a picture. I'm going to throw it up on here. I don't want to get copyrighted and have the whole thing deleted, but that's all it is. Somebody get in there. He's the kid eater. That's what he is. Yeah, I get what he's doing. Look, they knew with season 41 and season 42 that they were going to do things that they probably weren't going to do moving forward. I think it's confirmed that season 43 and 44 are 26 days, right? I think that's already been confirmed. I think somewhere
I assume on the interwebs. So, probably. I know Jeff said it's happening for the end of time.
Yeah, I think that that's done. So now that we know that, it is what it is. But there's other things that they know are going to happen that people are going to say, okay, well, now I just know this is going to happen. Well, we need to understand as fans and as people who are going to try to go and play the game and all of that fun stuff is this. If you go out to play Survivor now, you're going to think you've seen every trick in the book.
Mm-hmm.
But like Jeff kept saying with season 41, drop the 4, it's season blah, 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 all that nonsense. But if that's really the case, season 3 is the first time that something really changed. Season 1 and 2 were almost the exact same show with the exception that one was 3 days longer than the other and a guy fell in the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Season 3 was when they did the swap. Well, season 41 and season 42 are almost the same show. And I think this is Jeff's way of saying, don't just think because we've done it twice that this is how it's always going to be. And don't think that we don't know that this would get stale and that this is stupid. I think he's realizing it and trying to almost confirm with us and pat us on the back and tell us, don't worry. We realize where this is going and we realize what we have to do to make sure that it's going to continue to become a better show and not a worse show. So while I agree with you, it is stupid and it is annoying and he needs to stop talking about the monster that nobody cares about. Unless it's the green one. Where's he at?
Where is it?
We haven't seen much of it on this season since that one episode, but I'll tell you what.
It's there.
It's there. But I just think that I respect it ultimately because it's working towards us.
I get it. That's a good point. And then like the knowledge is power, I think is like pointless. And maybe we'll see it be done successfully this time because Drea just is in such a powerful position. And then I think we will have seen it both. We would have seen it work successfully. We would have seen someone trick it. And now I feel like we're hopefully kind of done with it. Or they find a way to make it less overpowered. But I'm okay with it. I feel like other than like the Redemption Island back-to-backs, we've never really seen 2 seasons look exactly the same. And it is kind of interesting to see how differently they play out. But obviously 43 isn't going to be just like this.
Yeah. And I'm curious to see what they're going to do that's going to mix it up because I am enjoying this season, but I really didn't enjoy last season. So how are they going to be able to fix it? And how much of it is just coming down to the cast and the fact that this is a very, 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 very good cast. How much of that matters?
Yeah. And this cast is so good. This is really the last note I have. Jonathan has his own music. It's that like,
I did hear that.
I'm not going to do it, but he has his own music. It happened when he was pulling the boat in the water. And then it kind of tricked me because it wasn't like the ending win music, but holy moly, that was insane. And poor Omer.
Yeah. So let's talk about that reward challenge quickly. Omer nails 4 in a row, brings his team all the way back just to have Jonathan switch with Roxroy and nail 5. Just
in a row.
Crushing dreams. Just crushing dreams, ruining lives. It's amazing. I'm all about it.
It's incredible.
I'm all about it. He's just so good. He's literally a cheat code, but he hasn't won an individual immunity yet. Tori has won them both, but his name hasn't come up. Are they not realizing that eventually something is going to be favored towards him?
At some point, it's got to be. And I feel like we're totally getting winked at by the producers where Tori told Jonathan that she wanted to win more immunities. And guess what? She's been doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, she's won 2.
Yeah.
Is she going to win? Do you think how many more she got in her?
I would love if she could get is the most that both men and women have won is 5. I know for women it's 5.
I think for women, isn't it 4? Let me see. Most Survivor individual immunity wins.
Either way, I think Tori could get there because oddly enough, this and this cast is pretty built, they're not amazing at challenges. Probably because
No.
they're not eating.
Here you go. It's Ozzy, Terry, Colby, Tom, Mike, Brad all have 5, and then Joe, Boston Rob, Wigglesworth, Maraska, Kim Spradling, Chrissy, they all have 4.
I think she could totally get to 4.
But the problem with her is how much longer is she going to be in the game?
Yeah, she has to win them.
All of those people made it very far on their seasons.
Yeah.
You know, Mike Holloway's a winner. Tom Westman's a winner. Colby got 2nd. Terry was 3rd. Ozzy was a finalist. Like, all of those people made it really far, with the exception of Joe Engelman in Cambodia, who won 4.
Mm-hmm.
But Kelly and Jenna, they're sitting at the final. Kim Spradlin and Chrissy, they're sitting at the final. Is she going to be able to last that long? I don't think so.
I hope so.
She got to last 2 more at least and win them both.
She has to win them both. But there's plenty of game left. But we'll see. I think Tori actually could end up, now that Chanel is gone, I think Tori's going to hang around for a while. She has Romeo. I guess she and Roxroy like kind of are fine. And now she's like, I don't even think she's annoying. I think like over the course of these 36 minutes, I just like love her now. But I think they're all going to start eating each other, and she's in a good position now.
We'll see. We'll see. I mean, I hope so, right?
I sure hope so.
I'm a fan. In terms of props tonight, we had a couple blurred mouths. Roxroy and Chanel both had their mouths blurred. Hai had another episode title. I don't think that did anything for anybody. Drea sat out twice. Omer sat out once. Marianne sat out once. Lindsay sat out once. It was the first time for all of them, but Drea's one away now. Reward was Jonathan, Mike, Roxroy, Tori, and Chanel, which brought Roxroy up to 5. Brought Jonathan up to 5. So
and Marianne up to 5.
Marianne was at 5 after last week, wasn't she?
I think Tori was at 5 after last week.
Oh, well, Marianne didn't get the reward this week.
Oh, then why do I have her at 5? Okay, she's at 4.
Alexa's cheating.
I love Marianne.
That's all it is. So yeah, those were all the things that I got. Chanel ended up with how many votes on the season? She might have actually ended up with more than 10. We need to look.
Oh yeah, let me go on her Survivor Wiki real quick.
There you go, Survivor 42.
She also had a confessional in every episode that she was.
She did. She was one of the few who was able to get that in. So good for her. Chanel had 9 votes.
Oh,
boo! Yeah,
damn.
Ended up with 9. Nobody else is even close. Romeo has the highest of all remaining players with 3. So I don't know if we've seen such a unified cast before, but here it is.
Wow.
Yeah.
They're all friends.
Yeah, that's it. What else? Is there anything else? That was it. And then immunity was obviously won by Tori. So she gets everybody who had her for their fantasy games another 3 points. And right now she's the MVP of this game. She is the one who is getting people the most points. If you put her on your fantasy team to begin all of this, which she's on Vaughn's team. Surprise, surprise. Chanel was on Alexa, so Chanel takes a hit there.
Surprise,
but yeah,
surprise.
If you had Tori, you are winning right now if you have a full tribe and Tori. That's for sure. So congrats on that. We'll give better updates on that soon when it actually starts to level itself out. But that's really it. Drea had 9 confessionals tonight. Oops.
So close. Yeah, we got a message from one of our patrons asking for a power rankings update. We can do that in our next
power rankings episode.
Yeah, power rankings episode. Yeah, Phil, if you could just fill in the fantasy, I think that's the only thing we haven't done yet. But we'll be back at some point this weekend with our final 10 predictions and power rankings. There's 2 people going home. I assume 1 man and 1 woman is winning immunity. So this is definitely going to be an interesting one. I think it's still a 1-hour episode though, right?
It is. I think it's a 1-hour episode with 2 boots. Because I think it's just the split, and we see this all the time as a 1-hour episode where they just boom, boom, 1 challenge, get to 2 immunities, and that's it, done.
Yeah, they do the challenge at the 4-minute mark. And I would be remiss if I did not mention a Survivor alumni passed away. Ralph Kiser from Survivor Redemption Island. I think it's been kind of going around the internet. It's really sad. He was definitely a bright light on a pretty horrible season. And just saw that, and it's really very depressing to hear.
Very depressing. It's sad because now as Survivor keeps going on, there was such a long period of time. It was like, oh my God, nobody from Survivor has ever passed away. And now we're just getting to that point where the show has been on for 21 years and it's just, unfortunately we all are, it's terrible. So it just keeps going on. And I feel bad, Ralph, it's a shame because I think he was only 57
Yeah,
or
he
something
looked
like that.
young.
He wasn't very old, and so that was a heartbreaking one, and not the news you want to hear about as as you're getting ready for an exciting season of Survivor, and then boom, you get a bad
Yeah.
news like that. And like you said, Alexa, one of the few bright lights on a very, very bad season and dark season of Survivor. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's
But
that. Alexa, take us home with everything else. Take us home on a happier note.
I will do my darndest to transition my way out of what I transitioned us into. As I mentioned, we're going to be back this weekend with our predictions and power rankings. We probably won't have a guest, but I also haven't messaged anyone, so maybe we will. Who knows? We'll let you know the date once we know. Become a patron, patreon.com/survivor specialists. It's nearing the back third of the month, so we'll probably record our Q&A podcast, our Q&A podcast and our retrospective. So for those of you in our Facebook group, post some more questions. Nobody, we only have a handful of questions. So if you have a burning question to ask the two of us, please let us know. And that's all we got. We'll see you next week. And yeah, that's all I got.
That's it. Bye, everybody.
Someone named